Nested Lands might be one of the coolest survival game concepts I have seen in a while, and also one of the most frustrating. The premise is that you're rebuilding society after a supernatural, sentient plague wiped out nearly the entire world. The land itself is rotting, corpses lie discarded on the ground, and strange cultists wander the woods. And somehow, it still feels weirdly tame. Because every time the game gets close to doing something interesting, it immediately pulls back. The clearest example of this is the plague itself, because this thing should be terrifying. It doesn't just spread quietly through the air and decimate villages, it blights the land itself, leaving these weird, bulbous tumors in its wake. And if you get infected, it straight up laughs while you bleed to death. As soon as I saw this, I was 100% on board with what Nested Lands was doing. But in a sentence that will become very common throughout this review, the game is so early in development that it just doesn't do enough with the concept. The plague is everywhere, and there are hints that it comes from some kind of an ancient horror sleeping beneath the waves, which is an obvious Lovecraft nod I am again 100% on board with, but none of it goes anywhere. The plague is just kind of an obstacle, nothing more than a slightly strange looking rock you can either avoid or blow up. Nested Lands just doesn't do anything interesting with it, which I find quite puzzling since the concept is genuinely cool. Why aren't there plague zombies or mutated animals? Something to really sell the supernatural terror and make you want to cleanse the land. Instead, all you find is a small variety of goofballs that wouldn't be out of place in a Monty Python sketch. It doesn't matter if you're talking about bandits, plague cultists, or members of an evil church trying to cure the plague through any means necessary. They all basically look and act exactly the same, which is to say, like drunken British tourists.
Lucky day!
But if there is only really one enemy type, is finding them actually fun? Sadly, not really. The combat mostly boils down to mashing left click with melee weapons, or aiming for head height and going on a Call of Duty style kill streak with a much more powerful bow. Theoretically, you can also block and evade attacks, but since the enemies are kind of relentless, that just means you're going to die tired. Yet despite how janky it is, I still had a decent bit of fun clearing enemy camps as a Skyrim stealth archer. There is something innately satisfying about going boom, headshot over and over again, even if the actual shooting isn't all that smooth. But can the combat be improved through updates? And the answer is maybe? Right now it is so basic that nothing short of a complete rework can truly redeem it, and that is going to take a lot of work. So for the foreseeable future, this really is what you get.
Get ready to die!
What works a lot better is the settlement building. It is super basic and not really doing enough with the concept, but watching a thriving village sprout from nothing but muddy ground and hard work is genuinely satisfying. As with most other survival crafting games, the early stages require you to do a lot of slow manual labor. But as you get more and more villages, you'll be able to automate most tasks until eventually you ascend to medieval nobility and just kind of observe as your underlings slave away for your profits. But you cannot abuse them too much because they have needs and they are not afraid to leave if you mistreat them. And I really liked that because trying to keep all of these plates spinning made me feel like I was overcoming a massive challenge and slowly but surely making a name for myself. And I have to commend Nested Lands here because it really strikes the balance just right. It was never easy to get the next big thing as the material costs were generally high, but it was also never actually grindy or annoying. So despite some major issues, the game did manage to keep me hooked for about 15 hours as I was more than happy to bounce between building and exploration. And what's the exploration like? Well, it's a cool idea, but the game really isn't doing enough with the concept. Right now, the world is divided into 2 islands full of bandits, plague hotspots, and more loot than you can ever hope to carry back. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all it really needs to be, as long as each location has something unique to offer. But this is where Nested Lands stumbles. While each major location is visually distinct, none of them really offer anything different. It's always the exact same enemies, and always the exact same piles of random low-tier loot. There are no upgrades to find outside of quests, no special items hidden within enemies' strongholds, and no big bad bosses to smash your face against. The islands may be vast, but sadly they are as deep as a puddle. This does help with the atmosphere though. Running through the endless woods at night, accompanied only by the rustling of wind and the laughter of crows, is genuinely unnerving. It is why I kept thinking that Nested Lands would eventually pull the curtain and reveal it was actually a horror game all along, and why I was sad it never happened. It would have been incredible after a couple of hours all of those random bandit camps just disappeared and got replaced with something much, much worse. Now that would have been fun to uncover. Instead, the only thing that really pushes you along is the brief story, which, recited with me, is still super basic and not really doing anything interesting with the concept. Which is strange since the whole thing is surprisingly high effort for how simple it really is. For example, there is voice acting for both your character and all of the NPCs, and it's not actually bad. It is cheesy, yes, but it does work.
And here we are, my old village. The world is dead, but we are not.
The problem is that the story is told in tiny chunks separated by 15 to 20 minutes of running. You talk to an NPC, trek to the opposite end of the world to read a pamphlet, and then run all the way back. Every single time. Even if the story was excellent, that would test my patience. But sadly, Nested Lands has chosen to ignore its amazing subtext about ancient demons lying beneath the waves in favor of a extremely mundane, humans are the real monsters kind of a narrative. Now don't get me wrong, you don't need supernatural elements to make a story interesting. Just look at Kingdom Come Deliverance. But pulling that off is a lot harder than just going, hey look, that's a cool fishman you can stab. But to get into proper fishman stabbing mood, you'll need some good gear. So how does Nested Lands power progression feel? You know the answer. Theoretically, the system is fine. As you explore further from your base, you'll get access to better materials, which can then be used to create better weapons and armor. It's simple, yeah, but what's the problem? Well, the upgrades generally keep pace with the enemies, so despite ending with the best sword in the game, I never felt any more powerful than I was at the very beginning. I also would have liked to see more special effects to differentiate each weapon family, as right now swords, spears, knives, and greatswords all play pretty much exactly the same. Armor is slightly better because it not only increases your defense, but also keeps you warmer during the cold nights, which means you can explore further without needing to huddle next to a fire. Or you can just whip out a torch and solve the problem that way. Do you see now what I mean that the concept is genuinely cool, but the execution is just kind of lacking? The same thing goes for your other basic needs: food, water, sleep, and cleanliness. That last part is especially interesting as Nested Lands has a stealth system that relies on sight, sound, and smell. If your character reeks strongly of poo, enemies are probably going to start gagging long before they actually see you. So if you want to be a sneaky stabber, you actually have to go take a bath every once in a while. Again, it is a neat idea, but it just doesn't make enough of an impact to really matter. And neither does food or water. You get minor buffs for mixing up your diet and eating healthily, but it mostly boils down to a mundane, press this button every 5 minutes to not die kind of a thing. The only need that actually made me change my plans was sleep. When you're tired, you run slower and your stamina regenerates much slower. If you stay outside too long and don't have a plan B, you are at serious risk of dying to even the most basic enemies, and that introduces some very exciting tension to the gameplay. Do you want to push for more loot and risk a fight you might not win? Or do you tuck your tail between your legs and just run home? It's a simple thing, but I would really love to see more of that in the future. And now for the most important question. Would I recommend nested lands? Honestly, not yet. I can see what the game is going for, and I have had a decent bit of fun with it, but right now it is so unfinished and so unpolished that it just isn't worth investing your time into. But do keep an eye on it. There is a real glimmer of potential here. But whether that is the shine of a beautiful gemstone or a speeding train that is coming directly for us, only time will tell. Personally, I really do hope it works out. There is something truly special here, even if it is covered in layers of plague. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, a like and a sub would help me out a lot, and I do hope to see you again soon. Bye bye!